Hello everyone. This is the 27th part of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Chapter 81, The Green Part 1. General point of view, 1 week before. Guy Lisbon was an accomplished archaeologist. A 2007 Archaeologist of the Year winner. An expert on Sumerian and Egyptian prehistoric customs, artifacts, and had overseen important dig sites that led to the discovery of some of the oldest and well-kept relics from when civilization was just a nascent young thing. That was the Guy Lisbon the world knew. The Guy Lisbon who was a renowned scientific genius due to improving the current dating methods through his unique thinking, and discovered enigma forgotten by time by his out-of-the-box approach. But just like any other human, Guy had layers. Guy had a sickness. A genetic curse persistent to the Lisbon family that he had spent his whole life trying to find a cure for, and his time was running out. The sickness was a slow mutation that would cause black scales to sprout and take over his body until in the end he was nothing but a raving creature with a taste for blood. He had seen his father get driven to the same fate and later committed suicide when he had hurt his wife, Guy's mom. Science couldn't help him, no matter how many best-in-the-field doctors and specialists he consulted. But roughly a month ago, he had started getting visions. Dreams directing him to this relatively known country in Africa. A place with a magical cave in which inside was a pool that had healing properties. He had no idea where the visions were coming from. Emboldened and after extensive study into all he could get about this mysterious place, he had dedicated his remaining time to following this lead for a way to beat his unknown sickness. And his search had led him here, a nondescript village hidden between two valleys in the outskirts of the Hell's Gate National Park in Kenya. But that was when everything went wrong. They had trekked for 10 miles across the rocky terrain of the northern part of the country. And when night had fallen, they had pitched tents in the woods, a fire burning bright between them. Guy had listened in skeptical interest as his guides, two locals, spoke of the Famagini, the close approximation being demons that made the forest their homes. The rest had not believed them. Had even laughed at them. Guy wished they'd listened and hightailed the fuck out of there. However, during the night, they'd been attacked by something that defied all logic. A monster. His men, all lay dead behind in the woods. Getting here had not been easy. Guy closed his eyes and winced while remembering the screams. The darkness encroaching closer and closer to him, just like Freddie and Shannon, his friends, and the mercenaries he had hired to accompany him in this expedition. He tightened his fists. If his saviors had only been a few seconds later, he would have been devoured as well. But luckily, these people had arrived, chanting in an unrecognizable language, with green energy glowing from their eyes and tattoos. A green fire had sprouted between Guy and the creature, whatever it was. The villagers had saved him. The last thing Guy had seen was the village chief standing before him. Then he'd awoken in a hut, lying down on a mat with traditionally dressed people staring at him. Guy looked at his hand in panic, tightly garbed in a gray clothing that did nothing to hide the black disfigured skin. His sickness. And it had now spread to his elbow. Damn it. Then he remembered all that had happened and his mood plummeted further down. All this was his fault, it was all his fault. He had to make it right. Somehow. Speaking of which, he looked up at the faces of the village chieftain and elders. Tunahatarisha maisha yawenzita kumkubali huyu, mzunga hapa. We are putting the lives of our people in danger by accepting this white man here. One of the elders said heatedly. Guy didn't need to understand what he was saying to know that he was not welcome here. Fortunately, he could understand Swahili. Ungalia mkono wake. Atayea kona mashatani. Look at his hand, he carries demons with him. Another village elder, dressed in animal skin just like the rest of them, spoke up while pointing a finger towards him. The middle-aged archaeologist sat up, propping his back on the walls of the hut. Normally, Guy would be perfect for this. His sweet words and great sense of the African culture would grant him a modicum of hospitality from his hosts. However, he didn't have time for that now. So he solidly looked at the chieftain, the only one dressed in a ceremonial headdress designed from bones and animal feathers. Hua likua nyama waina gani? What sort of animal was that? The village chief looked at him grimly. Aden's point of view. So the old priest had looked at me strangely when, after I'd requested for holy water and gotten it, I'd shamelessly asked him to bless my daggers too. No amount of, "It's for a holy purpose, Father," had worked. So I cut my losses and left, mulling over the words he'd told me, "Go forth with the Lord, my son. Whatever is troubling you, I pray he delivers his divine wisdom to light your path." Oh, and he'd also added, "Don't kill anyone." Like, did I look that much like a serial killer? I was only dressed in a trench coat with 2 daggers strapped on my body for Krissa. Oh, makes sense why he would say that. I made my way to an alley, and after making sure that no one was around through my aerokinetic sense, I put a hand in my pocket and came out with a coin. A coin that had the number 666 imprinted on one side and the face of the devil with 2 horns on the other. Real original. This was a one-time use teleportation item, courtesy of the devil and his companion. I did as they had instructed me and held the coin tight in my hand, picturing where I wanted to go, with closed eyes. A second later, I felt my body suddenly get tugged somewhere. Opening my eyes, I found myself at least 50 meters in mid-air, falling down towards a settlement surrounded by a forest from all sides. The surprise was so real, I didn't have time to slow myself down and slammed onto the ground. I secretly cheered after sticking the superhero landing. "Take that, Iron Man." A wave of my hand and the dust that had rose up due to my landing was swept away, revealing the faces of scared women and kids hiding behind or close to the huts, all warily watching me. I raised up my hands and some of them flinched, making me feel bad for spooking them in the first place. "So sorry, guys. I'm..." A young guy came running from inside the huge hut in the middle of the village. One look at me and he snarled in hostility. He was dressed in an animal skin skirt, with tattoos running up his arms, like Aqualad, and built even more solidly than Superboy. "Stranger, you are not welcome here," he told me while a dozen warriors in spears came from behind him. "Leave or face the wrath of he who illuminates the garden." "Okay, Wahat. Really sorry. This is a misunderstanding. I come in peace." My words trailed off when he stepped forward and slammed his hands onto the ground. Instantly, my senses registered a unique energy that was teeming with life essence surround his form. A huge vine broke through the ground next to me and slammed down onto my position. I jumped away and watched as it smashed the earth in with a loud sound and left cracks. Dust rose up and a rumble spread out through the whole area as more vines and tree roots broke through the soil. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. The daggers appeared in my hands. General point of view. Maze poured Lucifer a drink as he stared off into space. She took the glass off the table and handed it to him. "You didn't lie to him, but you didn't tell him everything either," she told him. Lucifer waved a hand and the air before them shimmered before coalescing into a mirror, showing a clip of Aden fighting against vines. "Shamans MMHM? Didn't think there were any more left on this earth." Maze hummed while taking a sip. "In many earths," Lucifer added. "About that, we could have literally gone to any other universe. Earth 666 was the initial plan, in fact. You know, keeping up with the whole symbolism thing, but no, last minute and you decide to bring us here, Earth 16. Maze told him with a smirk. "I don't see you complaining, love. Admit it, you love it here." Lucifer shot back while enjoying his drink. Maze turned her eyes to the screen and smiled. "The boy is interesting." Lucifer nodded. "That he is." Maze frowned in thought. "But he doesn't know what he's about to face." "You kept it vague enough to..." Lucifer finished off her sentence. "Keep him interested while still sufficiently cautious. It will be a real challenge for him, but no worries, he will come out on top." Maze. "He is special. Very special indeed." Maze brought a hand to her chest with a grimace. Her heart beat faster. Her emotions were all over the place. She was worried. She was worried for Aden. The Lilim took a deep breath and resolved to wait. There wasn't a need to intervene. This was the boy's trial. Let's get this show on the road. Lucifer snapped a finger and a bowl of popcorn appeared on the table, replacing the vase of ambient roses she had gone to the trouble of ordering. May stared at her boss in intimidation and very slowly, she reached out a hand and grabbed a handful of popcorn. Lucifer tried to ignore the death stare but sighed and snapped his fingers again. The books lying on the corner of the table burst into light and in their place, the same flower vase from before appeared. We good? He wondered out loud. We good. Maze nodded, happy the death stare worked just as usual. Chapter 82, The Green Part 2. General Point of View. A conversation was going on in the penthouse. Lucifer's to be exact. He's going to be much stronger. Maze commented. You do know that, right? And this times he's going to be prepared. Aden might even lose. She further added. Lucifer rolled his eyes at the Lilim. Maze, we've been over this already. The boy needs this. Your incessant words of concern are not going to change my mind. The devil told her firmly. A smile crossed his face. Besides, he needs his own, what do the humans call it, rogues gallery. It's a custom in the cape business. Lucifer fully turned to stare at her incredulously. I don't think I've ever seen you worried about anyone else before, love. He grimaced, trying to come up with a word, disconcerting. Oddly endearing too, but mostly disconcerting. Maze crossed her hands in annoyance. I'm merely worried about my daggers. They're precious after all. Not that you'd appreciate the workmanship done on them. She grumbled as Lucifer laughed. Meanwhile, the subject of their talk was doing his best to avoid getting skewered by roots. Aden's point of view. Could you stop attacking me for 1 second? I'm not here, for fuck's sake. My words were cut off when another vine swiped at me. I brandished my daggers while sidestepping the huge-ass vine. The damn thing was easily 1 meter thick and long. And it wasn't the only one or even the largest. I blocked it with my palm, firmly grasped it and pulled. The ground below me trembled as the whole thing broke at the base before I could pull it out completely. Thorns grew out of its length and tried to pierce me only to fail. I threw the whole thing to the side with a sigh. This was dumb. The dude wasn't even letting me talk. I couldn't use any of my flame attacks because of the close proximity to the huts and the villagers who were watching the altercation instead of running far away from the fight. Guess dumb civilians with a death wish are a common staple everywhere. I had resolved not to use airbending, but it was fast becoming the only quick solution to this. I could blitz towards him at high speed. I doubt any of his attacks could actually hurt me, and before he knows it, quickly send him to dreamland through a love tap to the head. But that carried the risk of hurting him badly. Black Canary had always warned us to avoid using those types of moves if there was an alternative. Damn it, guess that leaves airbending. Oh well, just this one time. One of the daggers twirled in my hands, a minute draft getting produced by the action, while another vine slammed down on me. I sliced it apart like a sushi chef, my hands dancing in the air with scary precision. Once airbending came into play, this shit became too easy, especially given that I could sense the vibrations in the air as the vines shot towards me. The guy swiped his hands out and the tattoos running up his arms glowed green even more. He stomped his left leg to the front and slammed his palms together, a grimace on his dark face. The energy I was feeling before started pulsing in intensity, showing just how much power he was putting in this. The next attack was more exaggerated than effective. The ground started sprouting vines shaped like thorns. Sharp, pointy thorns. I flew up and surveyed the scene. I was now close to the tree line. I shook my head at this guy's impulsiveness. His attack had even taken out some of the huts closest to me. Luckily, no one was injured. The same bland attacks came at me. This time the vines rose up like a tidal wave from my front. Like 100 anacondas rising up to meet me, the vines sought to not only smack me out of the sky but to pierce through me like a pin cushion. I could fly even higher, but the trees at my back extended their branches to box me in. Okay, gotta give some credit, that was a good strategy. The look on his face was smug satisfaction. That pissed me off. Oh, you have no idea who you're messing with, man. I leaned forward, a sheath of wind springing up to cover the blade, enhancing its already fearsome sharpness even further, and then I slashed out. One of the reasons I was wary to use my aerokinetic abilities was how the air itself seemed to get excited around me. That led to even my smallest of attacks getting blown out of proportion. A violent wind sprang up from my move, a keening sound wave following my intent, not only slicing the attack headed to me into little pieces but shredding and grinding those little pieces to dust. The vines disintegrated, the ground below was littered with cracks as the soil was unearthed. My eyes widened and I reined in the air before I could kill everyone in the vicinity. The massive winds of death were successfully contained. Luckily, the air was always ready to do my bidding. I released it into a gentle breeze that sent away all the dust hanging in the air and clouding the place. 3 huts were down. The thatched roof and wooden walls were just debris scattered about the battlefield. I looked around at the devastation and sighed in helplessness. I love fighting just like any other power-obsessed maniac, but destroying property has always left a bad taste inside my mouth. The occasional pyromaniac-induced burn it all down aside, this was just wasteful. I heard coughing just as I stepped down onto the ground. The warriors from earlier who had been carrying spears and shields dragged themselves up from their strewn-about positions warily. Looks of shock were apparent on their faces after my little show of power. They flinched when I raised my dagger, thinking I was about to attack. I made no sudden movements and slowly sheathed the blade inside my coat, then raised my hands up to pacify them. Please, can we just talk now? I have no ill intent towards you people. I am here to hunt a demon. For added measure, I removed the hood, covering most of my upper face, and a collective gasp went through the warriors. Murmurs rose up, and if anything the hostility gave way to confusion. One of the thatched roofs from the destroyed huts was violently hurled away, and the angry vine guy stood up, holding his hand close to his body. A trail of blood was running down from his bicep where a spike was stuck inside. Some of the warriors ran to his side, but he shrugged them off, his eyesight never leaving mine. A hard look crossed my face as I prepared to suck the air out of him in case he attacked me again. Careful, buddy, this time I'm not going to show you mercy. I warned him as he stepped closer, the grimace on his face showing both the pain he was under and the anger boiling underneath his face. What was this guy's problem? I mean, I understand asking somebody to leave, but he almost seemed murderous. As if he was just using that excuse to take revenge for something. The familiar green glow that I was quickly starting to form a theory about manifested in his skin. Look around, you fool, this fight is hurting your people more than it is me. I implored. The warriors were now exchanging worried looks and some were talking to him, saying something along the lines of Wakhana name Kuwangu. Please stop it, my lord. Before he could attack me again, an angry voice sounded out in the same language. Unafanya nini? Nini inandilia hapa? Masali wacha hai mambo. What are you doing? What is going on here? Masali, stop this now. Upon the name drop, everyone turned as a collective to stare at an elder gentleman dressed in the same garb as the warriors. The only difference was how the same tattoos inscribed on the vine guy I was now sure was named Masali, seemed to cover his whole body. Masali looked back at the older gentleman and blinked in surprise and guilt. Jamba. Uncle. I breathed out a sigh and relaxed a little. Looks like the fight was over. For now at least. Gosh, Lucifer is right, I suck at first impressions. The pair of Masali and the older gentleman got into a heated argument and the younger of the two seemed to deflate in himself as he lost. Masali threw me a disgusted look and stomped away. Most of the warriors followed him, and it was then I noticed how almost all of them were around Masali's age if not younger, which met around mine. That's unusual. I was pulled out of my musings by the older man who walked over to stand before me. He studied me for a few seconds, which unnerved me more than I cared to admit. His eyes had a green glow that just seemed to see right through me. Stranger, I apologize for my nephew's brashness. These are troubling times you found my village in. Who are you? I raised an eyebrow. The old man could speak English. It was heavily accented, but still, a welcome surprise. My name is Maelstrom. I mean no harm to your village. And I apologize for all the destruction my fight with your nephew caused. I bowed my head a little, as a sign of respect. Are you the leader? The man hummed and closed his eyes a little. I am not. The village chief is, or rather was my brother. He has been missing along with most of our veteran warriors and a white man for a week now. He stopped to gauge my reaction. I don't know what he was expecting, because although that particular news was interesting, I had no context to judge it from. I'm sorry for that, but I'm not sure I understand. I replied. So you were not together? Most curious. Follow me. He told me and abruptly turned to leave. I stepped up to follow behind him closely. We passed by more huts and villagers, all of whom looked at me warily. I am the high shaman of he who illuminates the garden. He explained. I'm sorry, what? I didn't really understand what he was talking about. The guy was suffering from the being cryptic disease. We diverged off the track towards a bigger hut set in the middle of the village and instead took one that went in between trees. A low-hanging mist covered that direction and looked ominous. Tell me, champion of the white. What is it you seek? He inquired, taking calm and measured steps towards the mist. The white? What is that? I know about the green, but what is the white? He suddenly stopped and rounded up to stare at me. A look of surprise on his face. You are not aware of where you draw your strength from? Interesting. He brought a hand to his chin and caressed it. A smile showing a surprisingly white set of teeth appeared on his face. We have much to talk about. The look on his face told me I was about to get hit with some deep revelations. Damn it, this was supposed to be a fight with a demon. A simple affair. Chapter 83, The Green Final Part. Aden's point of view. After the old shaman said that, he turned and continued walking forward. I paused a little in place while mulling over his yet again cryptic words. His form grew hazy as the mist obscured my sight. Despite possessing enhanced senses, my eyesight could only clearly see a few meters ahead of me. That fact was further compounded by the fading evening sunset as well. That said, this mist was anything but natural. It would have been a simple matter to get rid of it through aerokinesis, but it almost felt wrong. This whole place gave me a sacred vibe. Let's not risk upsetting some gods. Are you coming? The shaman asked from my front, his voice colored by amusement. Seeing no other choice, I shrugged and followed. My steps were also soft and measured. I was careful, unsure of what to expect next, but ready for anything. The previous incident had shown me that these people were powerful, and I had no idea if the shaman was leading me to a trap or not. The mist started retracting slightly, giving way to a green glow that lined up the path. The soil beneath me became even softer and wetter, showing me that a source of water was nearby. I kept my eyes trained on the back of the elder shaman, and when he stopped, I quickly stepped forward to see what he was looking at. The mist suddenly pulled away from my vision and I gasped, coming to a stop right next to the aged shaman. The moonlight was gently sending rays of light down on a beautiful garden. There was a circular open space that extended 20 meters from a massive tree in the middle of the garden to the tree line. A pool of glowing water which looked serene was before the tree. A small wooden bridge, clearly man-made but very old seeing as vines had crept all along the structure, provided the way to cross over to the other side. Between the pool and the huge tree was a simple shrine with a statue of the same exact tree standing before an altar. What the actual fuck? I muttered in shock. The energy inside this space was tremendous. It buzzed across my skin like a current, leaving me with goosebumps. I threw a glance at my tour guide, who merely smiled while swiping a hand out to the whole area. Welcome to the shrine of he who illuminates the garden. General point of view. You're being irrational. Two men sat at a table in Metropolis. A fairly popular pie shop, located near the docks, called Freddy's Pie and Pizzeria Palace. A mouthful, but damn if they didn't make the best damn pie in Metropolis, Bruce Wayne mused, stabbing into a piece of the pie with a fork. Are you even listening, Bruce? Clark Kent asked the billionaire playboy philanthropist. The former removed his glasses, a rare action when he wasn't in his other persona, and rubbed his eyes. The action got a raised eyebrow from the elite Gothamite. Clark sighed and wore his glasses once more. I'm worried about you. It's not the same anymore without your presence. And you've also been acting. I'm fine, Clark. There's no need to worry about me. Just tell me if you got what I asked. Bruce was quick to interject. Instead of answering, the veteran journalist looked around at the restaurant. I understand the need to meet here at Freddy's. The pie is to die for after all, but Bruce, you do know that you're always welcome. If not up there, then Lois and I would be happy if you could come for dinner sometime. Bruce narrowed his eyes at Clark. You're stalling, he told him, making the other man smile wryly. Sorry, had to try. Clark reached into his briefcase and came out with a flash drive along with a folder containing a few pictures and documents. All the images and information I took are in there. I was surprised when you called me during the rescue mission for a favor. So why the sudden interest, Bruce? The location is near the border between Ethiopia and Kenya, and while both countries have a peaceful relationship, they get anxious whenever a third party is spotted near the boundary. Especially considering the ongoing tensions between Kenya and Somalia. I flew above the location, trying to spot anything through a wide range of vision, and came up with nothing. Clark's tone changed to a serious one. Bruce opened the folder and started going through the pictures. A look of concentration on his face. The images showed a perfect valley, free of any local settlements for miles. So how and where would they have disappeared to? Could magic be involved? That was one of the only ways someone could hide from Superman's vision. Bruce. Clark added more forcefully, pulling the Wayne out of his thoughts. He looked up and saw Clark's look of concern increase. I didn't want to say this, but the dark circles around your eyes, you haven't been getting enough sleep, have you? Clark questioned. I am fine. Bruce replied with a hard tone, turning his attention back to the folder. Clark knew a lost cause when he saw one. He wasn't going to get through to him, so he decided to speak to Alfred later and get him to stop Bruce from pushing himself too much. But that didn't mean Clark was giving up. A huge hand belonging to the journalist was laid above the files, stopping Bruce from perusing through any further. Tell me what is going on. I have been more than patient with you, Bruce. What are you looking for? He refused to budge. Bruce looked him in the eyes and saw the Kent family's stubbornness reflected there. A small smile worked its way onto his face. Fine. In response, Clark smiled and leaned back, crossing his hands and waiting for the billionaire to talk. Guy Lisbon, world-renowned archaeologist, a friend of mine. Aden's point of view. It was peaceful. I breathed in and out. My chest filling with clean air that was full of green life energy. We were seated, cross-legged before the altar of He who illuminates the garden, which was the title of the trees standing tall over us. The evening had given way to the darkness of the night. But even that just added more beauty to the shrine and surrounding vegetation. The pool glowed and pinpricks of light shimmered on the tree above us, like miniature stars captured and stored in the leaves. Champion of the white, feel the deep calling of that which connects the whole planet. An interrelation that transcends all understanding. Feel it. Feel it, and maybe you'll understand your own link with the Parliament that grants you strength. I did as he asked, using my unique energy sense to dive in, exploring the bonds, the interconnections, the associations. The tree was alive, as was every plant. My energy sense spread across Africa, traveling through green circuit lines, through the roots, branches, vines, and leaves. I felt a deep pulse of the same green energy, a beacon from Louisiana back in the US before even that was drowned out by the entirety of it all. And it was a thrilling revelation that left me gasping at the beauty of what I had seen, hidden from the common man's eyesight. Life comes in many forms, young elemental. I felt the words, undecipherable to my ears, yet the impact they left inside my spirit was undeniable and understandable. I wasn't dealing with a mere god or entity. I was dealing with the spirit of all that the green was. It was overwhelming, and I felt that if I was anyone else, my mind would have been reduced to nothing. When you're ready. My mind was catapulted back to the open space, and I instantly felt blind. I grimaced and hugged myself, suddenly shivering. My emotions were all over the place. What was wrong with me? Ha ha ha. Don't worry about it. Some of the initiates even cry their first time upon connection with the hub. You get a simple glimpse, and that glimpse stays with you for the rest of your life. Just take a few deep breaths and everything will be okay. I did as the shaman instructed and took a few minutes to calm myself, going over everything I had seen. It was clear to see that my powers had been influenced by certain DC elements. This white in particular. I had a theory on what it was, but fortunately there wasn't a need to stress myself out when I had someone who could answer any questions I had. When I did relax, I figured it was time to start off with a question that had been bugging me. What is your name? I softly asked. MMH, he hummed, taking a drag from a pipe that he had lit up amid my trippy ride across the network of vegetation. I had a name once, I had a life outside this village. That is how I came to learn your language after all. But that was a long time ago. These days, I am called the High Shaman, and that is the name I'll take to the eventual communion. He explained in that cryptic way I was starting to associate with all old people. Communion? You mean death? I asked. In response, the old man laughed. Death? We do not die, we simply live on as a part of the whole. A different form. Look up, he instructed, pointing towards the pinpricks of light shining above us in the leaves of the tree. My ancestors watch over me and this land. He who illuminates the garden is the collective consciousness of all of them. Chosen champions of the green tasked with protecting and safeguarding the garden, the earth and more. His words brought about even more questions I traded for more relevant ones. What is the white? The shaman took a drag of his pipe and let out the smoke. It twirled in the air smoothly, floating up in a long winding line. He leaned forward and stared at me in deep concentration. That is not something I can tell you. You will have to find it out for yourself. Motherfucker. This marks the end of part 27 of the story, Avatar in DC Universe. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.